When I married Daniel, I thought I had won life's biggest lottery. He was everything a woman could ask for: charming, successful, kind. A lawyer who handled high-profile cases, Daniel had this magnetic presence that could make an entire room stop and listen. I was just an ordinary schoolteacher. Quiet, observant, the kind of person who preferred tea over champagne and long walks over loud parties. We balanced each other. Or at least I thought we did. We met at a charity fundraiser 5 years ago. I was there with a friend who dragged me out of the house, swearing I needed to stop spending weekends grading papers. Daniel was on the event board, giving a speech about justice and hope. I still remember the way his voice sounded: deep, steady, certain. When he looked my way after his speech and smiled, I felt something shift inside me. We talked for hours that night. He asked about my childhood, my dreams, my favorite books. He listened with the kind of attention that made you feel like the most important person in the world. By the end of the evening, he asked me to dinner. A year later, we were married. The first 2 years were beautiful. He left notes for me on the fridge every morning. We took spontaneous weekend trips. He brought flowers just because. We dreamed of buying a cottage near the lake one day. I would teach at a small local school and he would do legal work pro bono. It felt like something out of a novel. But then, slowly, things began to change. At first, I didn't even notice. He started coming home late more often, blaming work. His phone would buzz during dinner and he'd walk into the other room to answer it. When I asked who it was, he'd say, "Just a client, sweetheart, nothing important." I believed him, because that's what you do when you trust someone completely. You give them the benefit of the doubt, but doubt, once planted, grows quietly, like a crack in a window that spreads until the whole thing shatters. It started with a necklace. I was doing the laundry one Sunday when I noticed a velvet box tucked into the pocket of his coat. I opened it, curious. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a tiny heart-shaped pendant. It was beautiful, simple, elegant, something I would have loved. But it wasn't for me. I hadn't received a gift in months. My heart thudded as I stared at it. When I asked Daniel about it later that evening, trying to sound casual, he blinked, looked confused for a moment, then smiled. "Oh," he said, "that's for one of my clients. Her daughter just turned 18. It's a gift from the firm." He sounded so sure, so normal, I almost felt silly for asking. But that crack in the window? It spread a little further. Then came the lipstick. It wasn't mine. The color was wrong. Too bold. Too red. I found it under the passenger seat of our car when I dropped my phone and reached down to grab it. I stared at it for a long time. The cap was loose, the lipstick slightly smudged like it had been used in a hurry. I didn't confront him immediately. I just kept watching. I noticed how he smiled at his phone sometimes, the way a teenager would. I noticed how he started, shaving more often, wearing cologne even when he said he was just going to the office. And then, one night, he didn't come home at all. He called around 11 p.m., saying he had been called away for an emergency deposition in another city. "Didn't want to wake you," he said. "I'll be back by morning." I didn't sleep a minute that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding like it already knew what my mind was trying to deny. When he returned the next morning, I watched him walk through the door like nothing had happened. He kissed my forehead, said he was exhausted, and headed straight to the shower. That's when I knew. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I stopped pretending. I began checking phone records, bank statements, email activity. It felt invasive, but I told myself I needed to know the truth. The truth came fast. There were hotel bookings under his name in our own city. Lunch. Reservations for 2. Charges for gifts from jewelry stores, lingerie boutiques, places we never shopped at together. One day I followed him. He said he had a court hearing in the city. I called the court that morning pretending to be from his office. There was no hearing scheduled under his name, so I took the train downtown, dressed simply, blending in with the crowd. I watched from across the street as he exited a cab. I followed at a distance. He walked into a quiet neighborhood cafe, one I had never heard of. 5 minutes later, a woman walked in, tall, blonde, confident. She leaned over and kissed him. Right, there, in the open, in the middle of a weekday, not a polite kiss, a lover's kiss. I stood frozen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run across the street, pull him out, demand an explanation, but I didn't. I just stood there watching the man I married live a second life in front of my eyes. That night, I didn't say a word. I cooked dinner, smiled, asked him how. His court hearing went. He lied, smoothly, effortlessly. He even told me he was thinking we should plan another weekend getaway, like the old days. The pain was physical. But I smiled back, because now I had a plan. I wasn't going to cry, in secret anymore. I wasn't going to let him gaslight me or make me feel like I was imagining things. I would gather everything. Every receipt, every message, every photograph. And when I was ready, I would confront him. But not like the broken woman he thought he could keep in the dark. No, I would stand tall, and he would never see it coming. I had never imagined myself becoming the kind of woman who snoops. But after what I saw at the cafe, the line between right and wrong felt blurred. I wasn't doing it to hurt Daniel. I was doing it to survive. For the next few days, I acted as if everything was normal. I packed his lunch. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings. I even asked him about work, smiling through my teeth while he described fake meetings and non-existent court hearings. But behind the smile, I was collecting everything. The first piece of evidence came easily. The lipstick. I placed it in a small plastic bag and labeled it. Not because I was going to the police, but because I needed to treat this like a case, like something outside myself. If I let emotion control me, I'd collapse, and I couldn't afford to collapse. The next thing I found were the hotel receipts. He'd used a joint credit card. I downloaded every monthly statement for the past 6 months and went through each line, highlighting charges that didn't make sense. The Grand Sapphire Hotel, the Rose Inn, the Willow Boutique Suites, all within 20 miles of our house, all during days he said he was in court. I printed each receipt, put them in a folder. Then I opened a separate email account under a different name, just in case. One night, I waited for him to fall asleep. I had long memorized his phone password. It was our anniversary date. I held my breath as I scrolled through his messages. He had deleted most of them, but missed one app, Telegram. There, in full view, were texts that made my stomach turn. Her. Last night was perfect. I miss your arms. Daniel. Same here, baby. I wish I could wake up next to you every day. Her. Soon. She won't suspect anything. Daniel. She's clueless. I've been careful. Clueless. That word burned into my brain. I took screenshots of every message and emailed them to myself. I didn't cry. I didn't throw his phone across the room. I didn't scream. I just sat there, in silence, surrounded by the reality of my own marriage falling apart. A few days later, I called in sick from work. I used the time to go to the cafe where I had seen them together. I asked for a coffee, sat down at a corner table, and waited. Sure enough, around noon, she walked in again. Alone this time. She looked normal. Not like a villain from a movie. Just a woman in her 30s with soft features and designer sunglasses pushed up into her hair. I watched as she ordered something, then sat down to check her phone. I didn't approach her. I needed more. Back home, I searched through Daniel's closet. I found a second phone hidden in an old shoebox. It had only one contact saved under S. I turned it on and immediately saw their photos, selfies of them laughing in bed. A beach day somewhere I didn't recognize. One image made my hands tremble. It was Daniel holding her from behind, both of them smiling like newlyweds. He looked happy. I looked like a fool. That night I stayed up late. I opened a Word document and began typing everything. The timeline, the messages, the photos, every lie I had uncovered. I saved it all to a flash drive and labeled it Truth. Then I called a lawyer. She listened patiently as I explained everything. When I finished, she paused for a moment. "You've been living with a stranger," she said quietly. "You have a strong case. We'll move carefully. But first, are you safe?" I nodded. "I'm not afraid of him," I said, but the truth was I didn't know anymore. The man I thought I married was gone. In his place was someone who could look me in the eye and lie without blinking. We set a meeting for the following week. I didn't tell Daniel. The next morning, I sat at our kitchen table watching him butter toast and scroll through his phone. "How was work yesterday?" I asked. "Exhausting," he said, not looking up. "I had to mediate a business contract. Dispute for 8 hours straight." I smiled. "Poor you," I said. "Maybe we should take a trip. Just us. Clear our heads." He looked up, surprised. "Really?" he asked. "That would be nice, but I might be swamped for the next few weeks." "Of course," I said. "I understand." Inside, I was screaming. On Saturday, he told me he had to attend a legal conference in another city. "I'll be gone overnight," he said. "Just one night." I helped him pack. I made him coffee. I kissed him goodbye at the door. Then I followed him. I had borrowed my friend Ava's car so he wouldn't recognize me. I stayed at a safe distance as he drove, not toward a conference center, but toward a small lakeside cottage, the same one we once dreamed of buying together. He got out of the car. She was already waiting there. She ran to him like a scene from a movie. He lifted her in his arms. They kissed, laughed, then went inside. I didn't move for a long time. I sat in the car, parked under the shadow of a tree, staring at the house like it was a grave. It was the burial place of our marriage. The next morning, I was already home when he returned. He looked tired, a little sunburned. "Conference went long," he said. I nodded. "I bet," I said softly. He took a shower, changed, then came back downstairs. "Hey," he said, "want to do something fun today? Maybe a movie?" "Sure," I said. "But first, I want to show you something." I walked to the living room and opened my laptop. I inserted the flash drive labeled Truth and waited as the folder opened. He looked confused at first. Then he saw the photos, the messages, the receipts, everything. His face changed slowly, confusion to panic, panic to anger, anger to silence. "I know everything," I said, voice calm. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then he sat down. "This isn't what you think," he began. I held up a hand. "Stop. I've heard enough lies." He stood up. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "Every day, every word, every time you smiled at me knowing what you were doing." He swallowed hard. "Please, we can fix this." I shook my head. "I already fixed it," I said. "I called a lawyer. We're done." And with that, I walked out of the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I simply left him in the silence he had earned. The days that followed were not loud. There were no dramatic confrontations, no broken glass, no screaming in the driveway, just a deep, aching silence that filled the space Daniel had once occupied. After I showed him the truth, he left the house for a few days. I didn't ask where he went. I didn't care. I spent that time packing his things. Every drawer, every shelf, every reminder of the man I once loved, boxed and stacked near the front door. I kept a few legal documents for my lawyer, but everything else was his problem now. My lawyer filed for divorce that same week. Daniel returned quietly one evening, not to argue, not to fight, but to say goodbye. He stood in the doorway with a weak smile, the kind you give someone at a funeral. "I never meant to lose you," he said. "You never meant to get caught," I replied. He nodded slowly, accepting the truth in my words. Then he picked up his boxes and left. Just like that, I expected to feel free. I expected to feel proud of myself. Strong, maybe. But all I felt was hollow. Not because I missed him, because I missed who I thought he was. That's the cruel part of betrayal. You don't mourn the man who cheated. You mourn the illusion of the man who didn't. I returned to my routine. Work, groceries, phone calls with my mom. I smiled at people, thanked cashiers, held the door open for strangers. But it was like I was watching myself from the outside. Grief is strange like that. You don't cry when you're supposed. 2. You cry in the produce aisle when you see his favorite fruit. You cry when you open the closet and see your wedding dress. You cry when a love song plays on the radio and you remember how you once believed in forever. I let myself feel it all, because that was the only way to get through it. One afternoon, about 2 months later, I received a message. It was from her. The woman he cheated with. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. "I'm sorry," it said. "I didn't know he was married until it was too late. He told me you were separated. I ended things with him. I thought you deserved to know." I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no satisfaction in her apology, no closure, no relief. Just more proof that Daniel hadn't just betrayed me. He had lied to her too. He hadn't chosen her over me. He had just chosen to lie to both of us. 6 months passed. The divorce was finalized. The house was now in my name. I replaced the old furniture, repainted the walls, bought new bed sheets. I was building something new, even if I wasn't sure what it was yet. One evening, I sat alone on the porch, watching the sky turn gold. The world was quiet, peaceful. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. "I hope you're okay. Just thinking about you." I stared at the words, and then I deleted them. No reply. No reaction. That part of my life was over. I started therapy. At first, I didn't want to. I thought I could handle it all on my own. But healing isn't about being strong. It's about being honest, and I needed help being honest with myself. Told my therapist everything, the good times, the lies, the pain, the numbness that followed. She listened without judgment. One day, she asked me something that changed everything. "What do you want your life to look like without him in it?" I had never asked myself that before. All my thoughts had been about surviving, getting through, moving past, but not about creating something new. That night, I made a list. It was simple. Travel alone at least once, start painting again, learn to cook something complicated, host a dinner party, laugh without guilt, love again, but only if it's real. That list became my anchor. By the time a year had passed, I barely recognized the woman I had been. I no longer walked around carrying invisible weight. I no longer searched for him in every shadow. I no longer asked, "Why me?" because the answer didn't matter. He had made his choices, and I had made mine. One spring morning, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I went back to the lake, cottage, alone. It was still there, still quiet, still holding the ghosts of what once was. But this time I didn't cry. I sat by the water, pulled out a small notebook, and began to write. Not about him, about me, about who I was, now, about who I was becoming. A few months later, I met someone. He wasn't flashy or charming in the way Daniel had been. He was gentle, honest, The kind of man who listened with his eyes, not just his ears. His name was Noah. We met through a book club. The first time he held my hand, I flinched, out of habit, out of fear. But he waited, and when I was ready, I held his back, slowly, carefully. I allowed myself to trust again. Not because I needed someone to complete me, but because I had finally completed myself. Sometimes, people ask me if I regret it. If I regret staying as long as I did with Daniel. If I regret trusting him, loving him. The truth? No. Because every step, even the painful ones, led me here, to this version of me. A woman who knows her worth. A woman who won't accept lies in the name of love. A woman who doesn't need a husband to feel whole. One evening I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a plain envelope with my name. Inside, a card with a simple message. I'm sorry I wasn't the man you deserved. I hope you found happiness. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just folded the card, placed it in a drawer, and walked outside into the golden light. The past would always be part of me, but it would never define me again.